cost of doing well in investing is putting up with volatility. The cost of a successful career might be long hours where you are pulled away from your family. The cost of a relationship is like always needing to sacrifice and compromise for the other person. Nothing is ever free.
Nobody is paying as much attention to you as you think they are. You can do it your own way, free of judgment and other people making fun of you or judging how you're living life because they're too busy worrying about themselves. You have to figure out what works for you and do it.
I often think about that. Like whenever the curtain comes down on my career, I want to make sure that I can say like, hey, thank you for letting me have this. I'm so grateful for it, but I've saved enough that like I'm ready to pass the baton to someone else. And that's a form of humility too. There's a quote from Denzel Washington where he's talking to Will Smith after Will Smith slapped Chris Rock. Remember that whole debacle? After that show, Denzel Washington comes up to Will Smith and he says, Will, when you're at your highest moment in your career, that's when the devil's going to get you. And it's like when your career is so high and you're so famous, and you think so highly of yourself that you can do anything, that's when you're going to get yourself into trouble. And I think just paying attention to that, that's the natural humility that goes into it. And it's not false humility. It's not like, false humility is like, I didn't do any of this. I just got lucky. That's all false humility. I think real humility is like, I built this through hard work and I made some good decisions, but I'm just a guy. I'm as fallible as anybody else. I think that's not just important. I think that's critical to any amount of sustainable success. To any level of success is putting up with and enduring unknowns and volatility and booms and busts and the other bullshit that you put up with in the investing market and in your career and in your relationships. There's always a cost for anything good in life. There's a cost that you have to pay. Like, of course, nothing's free like that. But most of the costs that you pay they don't have a price tag that you can just measure very cleanly. Like the cost of doing well in investing is putting up with volatility. The cost of a successful career might be long hours where you are pulled away from your family. The cost of a relationship is like always needing to sacrifice and compromise for the other person. Nothing is ever free. And so much of the success in life is just identifying what the cost is and being willing to pay it. Because for all of those things I just laid out, investing, career, relationships, the cost of admission is worth it. Putting up with the volatility is worth it over time. Because if you can put up with the stock market falling 30%, if you can just say, it's not that big a deal, I'm just going to hold tight, 10 years from now, the cost is well worth doing that. If you can put up with the compromise that takes to have a successful relationship, by and large, that's going to be a cost that's worth paying. Because so much of what matters in life is just the relationships that you have. And once you identify the cost of that relationship, you're like, I'll pay that cost all day long. So worth it. The amount of time between now and whatever your goal is, which is very different for everybody, not just by your age, but like if you want to retire early or whatever, it'd be like everyone's going to have a slightly different time horizon. You would break it up into different chunks. Like I want to get to a point, or maybe I'm nearing a point in my career where I'm just doing things because I enjoy them. There's really no financial incentive to what I'm doing. That's one time horizon. Another is like, okay, once my kids start getting older, I want to make sure that like I'm always there for them when they need me. Teenage years are so difficult for people. Like I'm 24/7, I'll be there for you, which means I'm gonna have to pull back. There's gonna be a point where I just say, look, I've accomplished what I want to with writing, and I want to be able to move on to something else. And there's going to be a point where I say, I really don't want to work that much anymore. I just want to move on. And maybe I need to take care of my parents. So like there's multiple different time horizons at different goals of your life. I'll tell you my own experience, which was in my 20s and early 30s, my wife and I lived in like 7 different cities. And there was nothing better for us. Some of those were just like, let's try this new city for fun. Some of it was moving for work. We moved for her school. And our ability to just get up and go, hand the keys back to the landlord, nothing was more valuable than that. Once we had our son, our first kid, then very quickly, nothing became more valuable to me than having an established, secure home base that nobody could take away from me. That was the cure. And also like kids are loud and they scream. And I didn't want neighbors in an apartment building that I was going to have to like try to keep my kid quiet from. So I was like, I want my own house that's mine. And it's just a standalone house. My kid can scream as loud as he wants, not bothering anybody else. That became important to me like instantly. So I think people get caught up when they're like, well, the housing market returns 4.5% per year. It's like, stop with the spreadsheets. Like just do what's going to work for you. I know Ramit Sethi has a lot of thoughts about this on renting versus buying. And I think one of the differences between Ramit and myself is I have 2 young kids. And so like that should, if I didn't have kids, I think I would be like rent forever and try different cities, move all around. What can be better than that? But when you have kids, what's more important to me is stability. I want my kids to go to a stable school, know their neighbors, have friends that they can be friends with for years. If you're buying a house because you think it's going to be a good financial investment, stop. Even if it turns out in hindsight that it was, it doesn't matter. I think these are just purely lifestyle decisions. And I think so many people get screwed up when they're in a spot in their life where they should be renting because they need to be mobile. They need to move around to a new job, new career, new school, whatever it is. But they end up buying because they think they're going to make money doing it. So I own a house, and if I ended up losing money on it, I don't think I'd care. That's not why I'm owning it. I'm owning it just because I want the stability for my family. When we bought our last house, which was after I wrote this book, so this is a different experience, I thought at the time and still think today, I probably paid a little bit too much. I mean, I paid the market rate, but if you said like, oh, did you get a good deal? I'd say, no, not at all. Didn't bother me in the slightest. That's not why I was doing it for. It would be like if you ask, like if someone is deciding whether or not to have kids and they think about the cost of kids, like forget about, of course you're going to dump hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars into your kids. And it's like, if money is coming into the equation, like stop right there. It should not do it. You're doing it for very different reasons. This is not an investment because there have been periods of time in which people have made loads of money. Historically, like that's the anomaly. Historically in the US and the UK, housing prices adjusted for inflation go nowhere. It's just been the last 20 or 30 years that there's this very brief window of time that owning a house was a great investment. Robert Shiller won the Nobel Prize about a decade ago for his work in showing that over the last 150 years in the United States, adjusted for inflation, most home prices have been flat as a pancake. It's just the last 20 years that have inflated people's expectations of what a house can do. If that's purely the reason, run for your life. Don't do it. Particularly, I mean, it used to be, and maybe it still is like this in many cities in America and the UK, but it used to be that rentals were almost without exception shitty houses. There were no good rentals. A big change, at least in America in the last 20 years, is that most big cities have tons and tons of luxury apartments to live in. And they're great places to live. And they're in the city centers and they got beautiful granite countertops and they're great places to live. Don't fall for the idea that you can't live well if you're renting. I think that's the problem. And realize that if you're doing it for financial reasons, you're probably about to borrow a shitload of money for an investment that historically has been a very bad investment. Like if you put it in those terms, like what are we doing here, man? You're going to borrow hundreds of thousands of dollars for an investment that historically has been a loss? That's what you're doing here? Do you feel good about that? That's what I'd say to that person. I mean, it's always the case that it's not the right answer or the best answer or the mathematically accurate answer. It's just whoever gets people to nod their heads in the right direction, that's who's going to win over time. Some of the examples of this that I love, Ken Burns, one of the most famous documentary filmmakers of all time. Most of what are in his documentaries is information that people already know. He'll make a documentary about the Civil War, World War II, Vietnam, whatever it would be. You're not necessarily learning something new in there, but he is massively successful, massively popular, because he's probably the greatest storyteller of our time. So even when you're taking information that people already know, if you can spin a good story about it, you get people lining up and they will knock your door down to listen to you. One other example of this are people who tell comedy. If you're a good comedian, like that's all just storytelling. And a lot of what a good comedian does is take something that's very obvious and simple, but you can tell a good story about it, you can make people laugh, and all of a sudden you get their attention and they'll remember it.
There's a very good book written by a gerontologist named Carl Pillemer. He wrote a book called 30 Lessons for Living, where he interviewed a bunch of elderly Americans. They were like 90 to 100 years old. And he just said, tell me the secret to a good life. You've experienced a lot of life. Tell me what you know. And he has a section where he says, of the 1,000 people who he interviewed, not a single person looking back at their life said, I wish I made more money. Not a single person said, I wish I would picked a career that paid more money. Not one, but almost every single one of them, looking back at their life, said, I wish I was nicer to people. I wish I was more helpful to my friends. I wish I spent more time with my family. That was universal. So if you want to talk about like regrets, what are you and I most likely to regret when we're 90? It's not making more money. It's spending time with the people around us that we love and appreciate. The fact that you're just merely aware of those states and the false story that those states can tell you puts you way ahead of most people. I think to some extent that there's an interesting book called 10% Happier, and it's about meditation. And the title came from, everyone's like, oh, can meditation change your life? And his point was like, it can make you 10% happier. But like, that's pretty cool. And I think that's true for money as well. Of like, can it completely change your life and turn you into a much better person and way happier? Like, I kind of feel like no, but like it can make you 10, maybe 20% happier in life. I think that's probably right. But just being aware of its limitations, like, is a huge relief, I think. Be like, no, if you want a happier life, you're going to have to find it through your purpose and your friends and your family and your health and your other philosophies of life that have nothing to do with money. It can help. It can make you 10, 20, maybe 30% happier, but understanding its limitations and what it's not going to do for you is pretty important. I mean, I think that's how humans have evolved, because at the core of it is competition. Like, where you have that, I think, drive, everyone has that drive, is not necessarily because you want to build another business or grow your podcast. It's competition with others who might be doing that better than you, or who might take your place if you were to step back. That gives you the anxiety. I think that's what everything is at its core. And that's why I like asking the question, if nobody was watching, what would you want to do? If nobody was watching your podcast, would you still want to do these interviews? If nobody could see your house, would you buy a house that was as big as the one you did? Sometimes the answer is yes. The answer might be yes to both of those questions, but it's an important question to ask of, are you doing this because it actually fulfills you, or because you are competing with other people and you think you're gaining their attention by doing these things? If you want, to attract the right friends, the right spouse, the right employers, there's a signaling aspect. A college degree is signaling. It's not the education you obtained. You're giving a signal to an employer that for 4 years I showed up and did the material and got the right answers. It's signaling. Like, signaling can be very, very important. It's not to discount it, but there's a right and a wrong kind of signaling. There's a right kind of like, I'm doing this, I'm dressing in a way and displaying myself and cutting my hair in a way that's going to attract the right friends and the right mates, the right boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it might be. There's also signaling of like, I'm going to aspire to buy this car that's a huge pain in the ass and I actually hate driving, but I think strangers are going to look at me and pay more attention to me. That's the wrong kind of signaling. I think we all just want contentment. So like I think we get into a lot of trouble when we chase happiness, when what we're actually going for is contentment. We actually just want to get to an area where we're like, I'm good, I'm all set. I think the relationship between money and kids is an interesting one, where every parent wants to use their hard work, what money they might have. It doesn't have to be a ton, you don't have to be rich, but they want to use their hard work in order to give their kids a better life. When a lot of times what the kid needs to do is learn on their own, and they're going to learn vicariously the values that you have about money. They're going to learn just by watching. You don't need to sit your kids down and say, let me teach you how to budget. Let me teach you how to save. Let me teach you how to invest. They're going to watch you and figure it out. And so you have to just lead by example with those kids. You cannot lecture values into them. They're just going to watch how you spend, what you value, how you save, how you judge other people and talk about other people. And they're going to form a philosophy of money based off of that. I think a lot of like the lessons that we learn about money when we're younger are because, like I said earlier, it's because when you're young, particularly you're a teenager, you're in your early 20s, most people in that situation have very little other skills to offer the world. Humor, intelligence, some people more than others, but in that situation, you're always going to gravitate towards, if only I had a nicer car when I was being dropped off at school, then they would pay attention to me. But the truth is, if you are the funniest kid in class, it doesn't matter if you're dropped off in an old junky car. People still respect you because they're like, man, he's a star of the football team. That kid's hilarious. It doesn't matter what kind of car he's driving. You gain your attention and your respect from something else. But if you're not the star football player, if you're not funny, if you have nothing else to offer, then you seek your admiration through, oh, he's dropped off in an Escalade, he's cool. That's where you want your attention to come from. To me, like the common denominator between all three of those books that you're holding is the idea that we talked about quite a bit on all the shows we've done together, which is that there is no formula for it. And that's very disheartening for a lot of people to hear. There's no formula for here's what I want you to go out and do, which is a lot of what people want out of content, whether it's a book or a podcast. Like, just tell me what to do. And the answer is like, I can't, because I don't know you and you don't know me. We're all different. But I think that's actually the biggest like relief. That's actually the best news, that you don't have to follow somebody else's playbook. You can do it your own way. And it's easier to do it your own way when you come to terms with the fact that nobody is paying as much attention to you as you think they are. You can do it your own way, free of judgment and other people making fun of you or judging how you're living life, because they're too busy worrying about themselves. You have to figure out what works for you and do it. And that's as close as we can get as a formula for living a better life.